Okay, there we go. All right, so again, my name is Christina. I'm the board administrator for the LPC board, and I'll send it over to you guys.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Stephen Hallbauer. I'm the board chair. I am a private practice attorney from Rockwall, and I'm a public member on the board. Joining us today are two of our professional members, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Janie?
Sure. Hi, my name is Janie Stubblefield, and I am an LPC supervisor, and I have a private practice in the North Texas area, and I serve as a professional member here on the LPC board.
Thank you. Dr. Amuna?
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Amuna. I'm the director of the Student Wellness and Counseling Center for Texas A&M University, Central Texas, and I'm here as a professional member.
Thank you both. We're going to work through our PowerPoint presentation today. It's been put together by our two professional members. We will add comments and questions as needed. And hopefully, if there is some time at the end of today's session, we will take questions. But the questions, like Christina explained, will be limited to the CE subjects today and not other pending board matters, just to make sure that that's clear. Okay. Christina, if you'll go ahead and get started.
All righty.
Will you share the PowerPoint?
Yes, sure. All right. Is it up for you guys? All righty.
Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide. As you hopefully are aware of, the board, after much discussion over the course of 2022, ended up making a rule change on our CE hours. And this is the new requirement. An LPC must complete 24 hours of continuing education during each renewal period that they hold a license. The 24 hours of continuing education must include 6 hours in ethics and 3 hours in cultural diversity or competency. This rule change became effective on March 7th. And as part of our ongoing series of these insights over the lunch hour presentations, it made sense that the next one that we did following the rule change was going to count for 1 hour of your CE credit in cultural diversity. I give credit to Janie Stubblefield, who really picked this up and put it together, and also Dr. Amuna, who said, I'm happy to join in. And so as part of, we're trying to do these insights quarterly, at least 3 times a year, but this one was very logical for just having this new rule change in place. So like Christina said, 50 minutes today and then complete the survey at the end, and you already have one of your 3 required hours for cultural diversity. So let's go ahead and move on.
So here's how we're organized today. First of all, we want to understand that hurdles do exist in accessing mental health care services. And it is the hurdles are larger for parts of our population than others. And we want to just be aware of what some of those hurdles are and what we can do as mental health providers to try and fill in the gap and in our own community and where we're serving. We also want to review our current population as well as provider statistics. And one of the things that BHEC has done this year is they have had a survey that is still live, and the link is a part of this presentation. So if you've not completed that survey, you can still participate in it. But that helps us understand what the provider population looks like in Texas as we are serving this Texas population. And then lastly, to identify some action steps for us as mental health professionals as we continue just to engage in conversation as it relates to cultural competency. And what we need to look at is we're, looking in the mirror at ourselves and our own cultural awareness. Christina? So the first thing is there is a need. Christina, go ahead. We'll go through parts of these pretty quickly. Most of you have seen the ACEs. We've talked about adverse childhood experiences for many, many years. Very thankful to the Kaiser Foundation and all the work they've done to educate us and helping to understand some of those adverse childhood experiences that our clients have before they even come to us. Christina, next slide. I found this image and this was really just a shocking, I don't know if shocking, but an illuminating image in terms of, yes, our clients have not only adverse childhood experiences, but also adverse community environments. And I think it's really important that we kind of overlay what's happening in the person's inside their home, as well as outside their home in the community that they're living in. And so some of those adverse community environments are going to be poverty and discrimination and, some type of a disruption, whether it be from a natural disaster or pandemic. My goodness, that's impacted all of us, or housing or violence in their neighborhood or some other lack of opportunity. Christina? And Dr. Moon, I want you to jump in on some of this things that we know are disparities that our clients experience.
Absolutely. I think sometimes as clinicians, we can get caught up, which is our position, in the diagnoses that the individual has and treat them according to the DSM-5 TR. But there are some things, even though the DSM-5 TR does a good job of addressing some cultural things in the V codes, and in the bag, there are some things, again, kind of mentioned that a diagnosis cannot account for. And so, for example, with regard to racism, discrimination, violence, and poverty, understanding that we do our biosocial, psychological examinations for a reason. For us, when a student comes in, we do an intake to get demographics, but we also do something called a supplemental intake to see what else is going on. So for example, yes, demographics helps, but we'll ask a question, something like, how safe do you feel in your state, in your city, in your environment, in your neighborhood? That's not getting direct to an issue of domestic violence, but it's a sense of belonging. So understanding that if you don't feel like you belong in your home, if you don't feel like you belong in your neighborhood, if you don't feel like you belong in your community, that's going to affect your interactions with individuals in that environment, and it's going to affect your mental health. And so I think the big part about understanding multicultural competency is stepping away from the concept of just skin color and understanding that we are diverse in so many other ways, and we'll touch on it later, that have nothing to do with the color of our skin. Yeah. So that's that slide. And again, this kind of feeds into it, Jane, if you don't mind, if you want me to go ahead,
Yes.
with regard to, what makes us who we are, in the sense that your race, your ethnicity, your culture, and the key word being culture, can play a role in your mental health. We talk about, I'll skip over here where it says how and where people seek help. There are a lot of places where individuals don't even know where to go. They want to get the help, but they have no idea where to go. And we have our 988, we have our emergency numbers that we advertise and that we put out there, but there are some environments and some communities where that information is just not prevalent. Again, I can spout that off the top of my head because I say that number several times a day, and there may be some counselors, some clinicians who, depending on their type of practice, may never come across the need to use that number. Another thing with regard to stigma and shame, I've done several presentations where we talk about, the shame and stigma of mental health in minority communities, the shame and stigma of mental health for individuals who come from immigrant families. But there's shame and stigma, again, that's not ethnicity related. So it may be, I am a non-minority male who comes from an affluent family. The last thing I want is for them to know that I'm seeking counseling. And so there's a shame and stigma that comes to mental health that isn't only tied to that. Again, with regard to a manifestation of symptoms. Again, I share this with different populations as far as mental health goes, not to pick on any gender, but I will say in my experience, for certain genders or individuals who identify as a certain gender, anger is an easier emotion to express than depression. So I will have individuals come into counseling and say, I have an anger management issue. And we realize that you don't have an anger management issue. You have an issue with expressing that you are depressed, because anger is more acceptable. It's more acceptable based on how you present in the world and in your population. And so just understanding that people sometimes can't get to the heart of what's truly going on with them because of the stigma of how they present and how that symptom may carry a stigma for them in their environment. So it's easier to say, hey, Dr. A, I have anger issues. I'm here for anger, as opposed to, hey, Dr. A, I am depressed. I have anxiety. I have hopelessness, because that symptomology is harder to carry than the anger symptomology.
Yeah, agreed.
So that's that side. Janie, you want to take this one, or you?
Sure. We know that access to care has been a problem. It's been a problem for years and decades. And that's one of the things that I'm always encouraging. If somebody wants to come into the mental health field, come on, there's a need. Christina, next slide speaks specifically to Texas. If you haven't seen this, I hope that you will go and really look at these statistics. And so in 2020, Mental Health America did a lot of research to kind of see where we are. And Texas ranks the third state nationwide in the prevalence of mental illness. Okay. So we're at the top of people who have mental health needs. But if you look just to the right there, we are 51st. We are the very bottom when it comes to access to mental health care. And so what I really hope each of you on this webinar understanding is you are part of the answer to the problem here in Texas. We need you. We want you. You are valuable. And so grateful for all of you to be here, and that we're the answer for what our communities need. And we can look at some more of the statistics later on. I don't think it's improved yet, but so as we transition into what our population and our professionals look like now, found this really interesting as I was reading through this, and all the resources are on this slide. You can go look at this yourself. So statistically, when you look at the 18 and over population, a majority has been in that identified as white category, but in under 18, what the research and the census is reflecting is that our population is shifting. And so we need to make sure we're staying a part of the conversation. And well, what does our population need as those shifts occur? And making sure that we stay relevant to meet the needs of those of our population. Christina. This one, I was actually a little surprised by this in terms of, the breakdown per state. And in Texas, it is a majority white, next Hispanic, and then Black and Asian. And so be prepared to serve these populations. I think that's the message we want to send here is do the work that you need to do so you can serve the population that exists around us. Christina? And this is just knowing where the immigrants are coming from, and some clinicians I have some people that I have very, very high regard for that work specifically with the immigrant groups. And here's where they're coming from. Christina. Oh, go back one. I think the message, Dr. Amuna, that we're both communicating is we're all unique. We're all different. Anything else you want to say on that specifically?
I was muted. Apologies. No, I'll just kind of co-sign on what you're saying in the sense that I think as clinicians, seasoned and unseasoned clinicians, I think that sometimes we can rely heavily on our DSM, right? To help guide us. We can rely heavily on our ethics to help guide us when we're interacting with our clients. And as beautiful and wonderful, as glorious as our DSM is, as beautiful and wonderful and glorious as our ethics is, we still can't paint a broad brush on how we interact and how we treat individuals. And so I think that main message is understanding outside of a diagnosis, outside of us being true to our ethics, who is the individual in front of us and what are they bringing with them to us? And even if they look, physically, emotionally, mentally like 10 other clients we've served, we have to be able to tee them apart and see them just for them.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, Christina. So what I really like about this is, and we all kind of understand this when we're sitting with an individual, there are things that are visible that we're able to just see, even in an initial meeting with a client. But the iceberg image here is there's so much that exists under the waterline of our clients. And I have recently had experiences with clients that I've actually served for a period of time, and we've done some work and they've kind of gotten to a space and we've reviewed their treatment needs, and some of the stuff under the waterline kind of came up that hadn't been addressed in the past. And that allowed us to have a conversation about, okay, how then do we have that next step and what the treatment plan is for this client and what their needs are and where they want to go. And it's just a reminder that there's so much that's unseen, and it may not come out in therapy actually for a period of time. And you can still do a lot of good work, understanding that there's probably more work to do as you, and I love the way you said it, pull, kind of tee that client out in terms of their individual needs. Christina? Okay, so huge round of applause to the Behavioral Health Executive Council. And I don't know whose idea it was to have this workforce study, but this study is live right now. I want you all to understand that the data that's being presented in terms of the mental health clinicians in Texas right now is a result of individuals who've answered this study. Okay, so these next few slides are based solely on the individuals who have answered the survey, and it says there have been 5,916 respondents to this survey. And so that is by far not the totality of the clinicians in Texas. It is those who've responded to the study, and this link will be at the end here. So if you've not yet responded, we want to hear your voice. We want to know what you're doing as well, and then share it with your peers to see if they have or have not responded to the study. And so these are just the different types of licenses. BHEC, of course, serves LMFTs and associates, LPCs and associates, psychologists and psychological associates. And then there are a few categories of social workers, including bachelor's, master's, and clinical social workers. And so this is the statistics of those who've answered the survey so far and what their license is. Next. Here's where I really want us to look at. These are the ages, again, of those who've answered the survey.
Hey, Janie, can I hop in real quick on that?
Yes.
On that previous slide, there is a degree of correlation of the overall workforce on here. I don't think it exactly lines up, but that is reflective of the fact that LPCs are the greatest number of licensees under BHEC. And if you look up in there, it's just about 6,000 total. The more data that they can gather, the more accurate it will be. And I'm going to echo what you said. If we can encourage more to apply, we have the beginnings of some pretty solid data here, but the more responses that we get to this, the better data that we're going to have. And this is kind of, there is a correlation to the overall numbers in that LPCs are the highest amount, but we want it to be as accurate as possible. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. The age really kind of gives us a pretty standard bell curve. So there's no really surprise in that. Genders also, we understand that a large portion of the mental health providers are identify as female. The next part is where I really want us to start to spend some time, Christina. And so of those who have responded in terms of how they identify as their race, you will see that overwhelmingly they're identifying as white and then not Hispanic. Next. But these are the populations that we're serving. And this is what I really think is important for us to realize in terms of the data, is that for the most part, our clients probably don't look like us. They probably don't live in the community or didn't grow up in the community that we grew up in or live in the community we currently live in. And this is why the LPC board has placed an importance on this topic, so much so that it is a requirement of your CEU and a requirement for renewing your license, is because we want to encourage that collaboration, that spending time looking at who you are and who your clients are, not just in understanding the DSM, but understanding who they are culturally, because it does impact what's happening and what their needs are in treatment. Next slide, Christina. And Dr. Muna, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I agree. I co-sign. Absolutely.
Okay. And then this is typically the ages that we're all serving. I think there's one more. And that has to do with the socioeconomic identifiers that, and again, these are the individuals who are answering this survey and the populations that they are identifying that they serve. The earlier slide, that Texas ranks 51st in terms of access to services. And so you'll see that most of us, I mean, almost 50% of us are serving a population that, and so there's a large part of our state that is going unserved. This is the survey. Again, this is, Dr. Muna, you want to say something?
I was just going to go back to the previous slide. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Just with regard to looking at the demographics of the socioeconomic status of our clients who may show up, understanding that I'm a firm believer of Maslow hierarchy of needs. And so if we understand that individuals who come to us, mental health may not be their priority, even though they're there for their mental health needs. And so understanding that, Maslow hierarchy needs food, water, shelter, safety, security, then enlightenment. And so if someone is coming in for anxiety or depression, it may be related to the poverty level. And so we may have to kind of dig in our heels, right? And go back to some of our undergraduate, graduate level classes and say, understand that you're here for anxiety, but let me help you fill out this WIC form. Understand that you're here for anxiety, but let me give you access to clothing closets and food closets in your community. So I think that we could serve our population by being well informed of things that relate to Maslow hierarchy of needs, in addition to our clinical skills. Because we know that if you feel safe and you have food and you have shelter, that may be a factor in reducing your anxiety or your depression. Go ahead, Janie.
Well, I was going to echo, and those of you who know me, y'all know I'm very visual, and the image I have is that of a safety net. And so if you look at a safety net, truly a safety net is nothing but a whole lot of knots. And what I've always said is each of us is just a knot in the net. And it's really important that we stay tied to the other knots. And so understanding and knowing what those resources are in your community, you're not going to be likely helping people to, pay their rent or pay their electricity or access those things, but being connected and knowing what resources are in your community, and maybe just having, just a simple printout, something that's easy to hand out to all clients. So you don't have to assume what their socio data that you have collected. You can just give it to everybody. And I like, that's how I treat that 988 number. I'm like, you may never ever need it, but one day you might bump into somebody who does. So I want you to know what this is so you can share it whenever the need arises in whomever's life that is. So great point. Again, we'll have this available. Please complete this survey so that, again, the more data we have, the better the information is. Next. Okay, so this is where, wanted to kind of look at and have us have an awareness of who we are and who the population that we're serving are. But now looking into, okay, what's the action plan? What do we need to be thinking about as clinicians so that we can become the best clinicians that we can be? Next. Dr. Moon, I think you're going to take the lead here.
Gosh, I got to remember that Zoom unmute. So, again, just kind of echoing some points mentioned earlier is redefining multicultural. Again, I can't tell you how many times I've presented on the topic or I've gone into an environment and you say the word multicultural, and the first thing that comes to mind is, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic. And I understand that those are valuable multicultural topics, but understanding that if we redefine multicultural, it'll change our approach. And if there's any resistance to it, right? There are none among LPCs because we're just awesome like that, right? But if there is a resistance to the topic of multicultural, if you redefine it as someone who's not just kind of, as the slide mentions, historically, visibly, non-white, but understanding that we mentioned low socioeconomic status is a part of being multiculturally aware. Me being in a university setting, understanding that a first generation college student or someone with no college education at all is a part of a minority or, different multicultural status. And then someone who works a non-traditional work week that's come to us. If we have students who say, hey, I work shift work. So I work from 7 a.m. in the morning to 7 p.m. at night. All the resources are closed, but I still have to provide for my family. What is there for me? And understanding that, okay, we need to rethink what service looks like. We need to rethink what care looks like. And then the concept of blended families. I've done some research. I think it was SAMHSA, who said that this generation of individuals, this generation now, the between 20 to 45, will be one of the first generations that's in a position of taking care of not only their children and their families, but also their parents. And so understanding that when someone comes to you, it may be, well, my mother is so and so and so, and I'm her caregiver, but I'm also taking care of my child. These are more prevalent cultural issues. And again, I think of, someone in counseling, they say, well, my mom is so and so and so. And the phrase may be, well, that's your mom, you can see her whenever you see her, or you let her take care of her own thing. I'm thinking of, American culture sometimes is very independent. And so if someone comes in and they're like, no, I have the responsibility of caregiver of family, of caregiver of parent, of caregiver of grandparent, that's going to change how they view the world, responsibilities and stresses on them. So as clinicians, we have to be mindful that it may not always be as an LPC, you have a person one-on-one and your focus is only them. We may have to broaden as far as multicultural goes and embed a more system approach when we're dealing with someone who's in a blended family. And so again, I'm not getting into other territories, but understanding that we have to get closer to assisting the person as they present in front of us and not how we've traditionally treated them.
great point in terms of the generations. I had done some research on another project, and one of the statistics that stuck out to me is that, and this has to do with the baby boomer generation, is that 10,000 people a day are turning 65. And so our communities really are shifting as the population, and so 10,000 people a day are turning 65, and we're living longer. And so there's a number of mental health needs in the senior population that are also potentially being unmet. And for some of those out there that's really where your heart is, want you to be able to jump in and meet the need there. Okay. Christina?
And so with regard to just this slide again, just kind of hammering it in, right? Understanding that when you hear the term cultural competency, when you hear multicultural training or competency, it doesn't only relate to, the color of the flesh that we wear on our skin. That it relates to so many more things. And so the importance of getting this training, the importance of being informed is more than just the color of flesh on someone's skin. It's helping someone in whatever state they're in that might not reflect the state you're in or a state that you've ever been in, but having knowledge that that state actually exists.
And what I would add to that, and this is something that I've chosen to practice for myself, is when I go to conferences and workshops, I definitely take those workshops that are important to the direct work I'm doing. But I'll try and pick one workshop that is really kind of not, a large part of the population I'm serving. And so I've gone to those human trafficking workshops. And earlier this year, I went to a workshop specifically on serving that LGBTQIAA plus. I learned so much and gathered resources just so that I would be prepared that if somebody needed those resources, I had them at my hand. And had I not chosen to spend that 1 hour of my time, not directly in the populations I'm serving, but really to be a part of this process and educating myself on not just what those needs are, but what resources are available to individuals there, then I would not have, I'm better for it. So.
Janie, that makes me wonder, at what point do you feel as though you are ethically qualified to serve those clients? How much education do you feel as though you need in order to where you feel I am ethically qualified to have this client?
Okay. And so you're really going to challenge me to pull my ethics knowledge off the top of my head, but I have said it so many times, I really should get it pretty close. And this is a part of under that first section in terms of counseling. And it says that counselors must be trained and have had supervision to have the competency to serve whatever population that is. Some of those niches, if you will, have certifications with specific requirements. I myself was trained in play therapy, and that required, I think it was 150 hours and 600 of training, 150 training hours. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, you're really challenging me. And like 600 supervision hours after that. I also did EMDR training, and that required, I think it was, oh gosh, maybe somebody knows these answers, because I went through that one twice because I was like, I really need to be grounded in this. It's like 40 hours of clinical training and then another 50 hours. And so it takes time to get those certifications. Now you're going to be serving those populations sometimes while you're still in that training piece, but it's under supervision. So it's with somebody who's clinically competent that you're going to be doing case studies with, et cetera, to make sure that you are in line with what needs to happen. A lot of things I don't do. I don't treat individuals with eating disorders because I'm not trained to treat individuals with eating disorders. So if somebody calls and that's their primary need, I pull out those resources and say, hey, I want to get you hooked up with these folks who are experts in this field. And so that's why I think it's very important that we stay connected. That's that knots in the net, and know who those resources are. Dr. Muna?
Absolutely. I would agree. I have an alphabet soup of certifications, but I will co-sign on the concept of not just getting the training, because we know that there are wonderful, glorious places we can go and get CEUs at the last minute when we're trying to renew. And they may even offer certifications in subjects, but that supervision piece makes the difference. So I could go online for 40 hours and get a training, and it'd be really good training. But if I'm not speaking to someone who actually does the work to the point of a supervision level, then I have no real barometer, no real measure of if I'm really knowledgeable or if I'm just recanting information I learned from a slide or a PowerPoint. So several of my certifications, kind of like Janie mentioned, yes, there's that education component, but you want to be connected to an expert in the field who can provide that supervision, who can also provide case management. A lot of times, if you go through a training, you do your 10, 20, 30 hours over the weekend, you got your certification in hand, you hang it up on the wall, you have someone that comes through your door that you don't remember from your training, you want to have a resource to go to so that you do no harm to that client. Because that is our first ethic, if you know nothing else, is to do no harm. And so to answer that question, yes, get training, but also get supervision with someone who you can actually communicate with when that tough issue comes through the door, because it will come through the door.
Yeah, and I think hearing y'all's answers to that, I think that is, if somebody's wondering about how do I expand my range of knowledge, you follow those instructions, and that's how you stay out of trouble with the board.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And as it, looking through the cultural competency lenses as well, is maybe if you have a niche, is then to go and look through that and say, how does that apply to what we're talking about today? So great point. Okay. Christina?
Thank you.
So this is where I really hope you guys are going to pick up the ball and look at what you're doing and what else you could be doing. Focus within. We all need to be healthy clinicians to make sure that we're doing our own work so that we can come into the counseling room ready to serve clients, because that session's not about us. We need to have already done our work so we can come in and we can serve them. Learn about others, recognize that their experiences shape them and their perspective. The third piece here, though, engage in dialogue. That's what I really hope that we're kicking off with today's CEU is listen to understand. Offer your views, but without defensiveness or combativeness when it's appropriate. We are, no matter what your personal beliefs might be, you might need to look through the lens of what's this client's needs and how can I serve them, even through, if it's, through my faith, I'm not sharing my faith, but as a part of my faith, I'm choosing to serve this individual and to care for them and to do so in a non-judgmental, non-shaming manner. And I think every one of us should be able to do that, and to be able to understand that being in that therapy room, it's not about us, it's about them. What is their need? Can I teach them some coping skills to help them with their anxiety? And if I really feel like there's a reason that it's hard for me to serve them, then can I make sure I connect them with really healthy resources that can do a better job for these clients? Avoiding blame, understanding that you're a knot in the net and you're valuable and you're important and you're going to be important in that process too. Making sure that they had a really good therapeutic experience, even if ultimately a referral is what's recommended. And yeah, Dr. Muna.
And I will add to the engage in dialogue part. Thanks to the blurriness of the technology, my camera's not that great, so maybe I'm not physically coming through. But as an individual woman of color, Jamaican ancestry, one thing that I would say that I've seen from my clients is the counseling session is still the individual's counseling session. So to your point of engaging, and I'm co-signing on you, is that the session is not a time for you to learn from the client. So like I'll say, for example, someone would say, something about my hair or my skin, or like, do you still get sunburned even though you're a darker skin? Does your hair do so and so and so? There's a difference between open-ended questions to the benefit of the client and open-ended questions relating to the counselor's curiosity and or learning. And so I think it's good to get education so that client doesn't feel like they're spending their session educating you for your curiosity, as opposed to educating you in order for you to help them do what they need to do, if that makes sense.
It does. And so I want to speak to the majority of the individuals that responded to that BHEC survey, and it listed there that it was over the 80%, almost 90% identified in the white category. And that is one of the reasons why I have become very passionate about opening dialogue and having these conversations about cultural competency. I am very blessed to have a large friend group that is very diverse. And many years ago, this is pre-pandemic, many years ago, kind of identify everything as pre-COVID, and now, as most of us do. But I know it was that long ago that somebody who I love and respect, who loves and respects me, who is a person of color, and we were in a workshop kind of a thing, and I was kind of asking those questions for my information, and it was not said in any derogatory manner, but they said, "Hey, Janie, you need to go educate yourself." And I said, "I do." And so I would share that with all of you who are listening here. If you are a person who is not a person of color, but and you want to be a part and to be educated in this, there's tons of resources for you to engage in educating yourself. I have started that journey. I am in process, and by no means feel like I have reached any type of end in that journey. But as a result of caring for not just that friend, but other friends, and then ultimately seeing how that has helped me serve clients, I have just chosen to invest time in, okay, what does this mean? How can I be more culturally competent? And I love how you said that, because I don't think that professionals who are maybe asking those questions are doing it in any kind of a malicious type of intent, but to understand that do your education outside the therapy room so you can then serve in the therapy room. Wonderful point. Anything else you want to say?
That was it.
Okay. Next slide. And this is something that I'm so excited that other people do all this work and we can just enjoy it. And so we all have implicit biases. We all experience implicit biases, even myself. And when I share mine, I'm a little bit embarrassed of, and people are like, really, that's what your thing is? But okay. But there are things that we do that we don't realize that we do, and we don't realize how offensive it's going to come across. And I've probably done it 100,000 times, even in our 1 hour today. It is not out of a malicious intent. But I'm very thankful that Harvard has put together these implicit biases tests. They are free. Okay, you're going to have to sign up, have a login kind of a thing. But if you are serving a particular population, okay, if you're serving that Hispanic population, if you're serving the Asian population, go in and take these implicit bias tests and really kind of sit and look in the mirror at yourself and go, oh, kind of didn't realize I was doing that. And it's coming across maybe as not as caring as I could be as a mental health professional serving these individuals. And so this is a part of the own work that you could do for yourself. And I got to say, in terms of, we have all these CEU requirements. One of the things that's still out there is that 50% of those does have to be in some kind of a structured, approved, but the other 50% can be your own research. And this can be a part of that. You can go and you can sit and you can work through what are your implicit biases and what do you need to work on as you're looking in the mirror at who you are as a professional in the populations you serve. FYI, there's not just one page of these. When you go to this website, there are dozens of them. And there's opportunity for you to educate yourself there.
I've learned that I interrupt people. Keep going.
The bottom line, if you go back one, Christina, and I really did, I love this quote, that's why I made it so huge, is that cultural humility, and that's what we're talking about, understanding that I don't know what I don't know. And 100% of us who are in this field are here because we care about people. We are not in this field to get rich, because we won't. But we're here because we care about people. And I love this quote. Humility is the awareness that there is a lot that you don't know, and that a lot of what you think you know is distorted or wrong. And that's not a negative reflection on who we are as people, because we show up as caring people wanting to help people. But it is important that we start to go, okay, as much as I know, there's still a lot more I don't know. Okay. Dr. Mooney, you put this next activity together.
Yeah, so this is something that I generally do when we are face to face, but I wanted to just have it as a visual multicultural bingo. Again, I'm harping on getting away from the concept of multicultural being just a skin, flesh, body related thing. And I have individuals, to try and get bingo. And believe it or not, I've been told that it's very challenging because they're multicultural things that relate to family relations, ethnicity, diet, socioeconomic status. And so the harder it is to get bingo, when people are like, man, this is impossible to get it, it reminds us of a level of, if you're not getting bingo, for the most part, it means that you have a very, not limited, but it means that the way that you interact with the world is different from the way that some of our clients interact with the world. And now there are some other ones that are just kind of different. So knows what WIC is. You don't have to have used WIC to know what it is. But again, depending on socioeconomic status and environment, you may have no idea what it is. And if you don't know that, you've just eliminated 2 ways that you can get bingo. So it's just a visual, letting people understand that our clients come from different backgrounds. And so I put one of the third one is like, has eaten at an ethnic restaurant. I put ethnic in parentheses because if you just Google Yelp or places to eat, ethnic is generally put in parentheses for restaurants. And so it wasn't to identify or to denote, it's just like, that's how it's copied and pasted when you go search sometimes. And then of course, free space, but just another one is, has ever had a utility turned off due to lack of payment? Has ever eaten cold pizza for breakfast? And there may be a number of reasons. It may be that you just like cold pizza, college life right here, right? Or it may be that you don't have a way to heat that pizza, so you're eating it cold. And so just to, if you have this multicultural bingo with you and you look at the people that it represents, and then you have a different look at your clients, maybe it'll put life and multicultural in perspective. And if people haven't noticed, my goal today, besides a few other things, is to take away the stigma of multicultural competency, to take away the stigma of, why do we have to do this thing? I see and treat all people the same. There is a problem because all people are not the same. And that it's not a black and white issue. It's not a flesh on your skin issue. Being multiculturally competent means that you are a well-rounded individual because our clients are well-rounded. So that's my plight and my soapbox.
Thank you. Okay. Christina? The resources are there. You can turn the PowerPoint off now.
Actually, Christina, can you go back to the BHEC survey, workforce survey link? We've had several questions for that link. Can you just leave it on that slide?
So, and I can tell you guys, if you will go to BHEC, the BHEC website, bhec.texas.gov, you'll find that workforce. Is it like on page 1? It's Christina, can you tell us what page it's on? It's really very easy to find.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and pull it up too and share screen. But yes, it is on the BHEC website, and let me find the page, share screen.
Jenny and Leah, if we've got you for just a couple more minutes, I've written down a series of questions that have come up in the Q&A. So the first one, we did have multiple requests for that link. So Christina's taking care of that. But can we also repeat when the 3 hours in cultural diversity, or when that actually does take effect based on your based on when your renewal is going to be?
Christina, I think that's a you question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Were you talking about the CEs?
We had a request to when, based on your renewal, when do the new
Yes.
CE requirements take effect?
Okay. So yeah, we got a lot of questions about that. So the cultural diversity and the 6 ethics hours are required right now. Okay, so anybody who has a license right now needs to be either have completed them if you're about to expire. They went into effect March 7th, 2023. So you have to have those. The only thing that is not in effect until January 1, 2024 is the 50% of the continuing education from a provider, from a university, hospital, association, etc. So anybody who has a license right now, you are required to have the cultural diversity, which is 3 hours of cultural diversity. This counts as 1. And then you also have to have 6 hours of the ethics. And keep in mind, it's 24 hours total. So those 2 requirements, and then you have the jurisprudence exam, then you have the human trafficking course. So those are all already numbers set out of your 24. So you only have to do the difference. They are not in addition. And then if you're a supervisor, you have the 6 hours of supervisor training, and that's included in the 24. It is not in addition. So hopefully that clears it up.
Christina, there was also a question. Someone said that they have 3 hours required in DEI competency through their employer. Will that count for this?
It should. If it's related to counseling, there's no reason that we would not count it. So, you know, I don't want to say 100% because I don't know what's on the certificate, but if it is something that is related to counseling, then yes, we should be able to count it.
Okay.
If it's in counseling. And
Janie and Leah, there was a good question. Somebody noticed that on one of the slides that a certain percentage are considered to have no access to care. And they were wondering, what are the typical barriers that lead to no access to care? And what can we do about it?
So, and Stephen, I'm pulling this actually from a presentation I did at PCA pre-COVID when we were down, and I remember we were in San Antonio, but I had found some research, and at the time, I think there were like 13 counties in Texas that had 0. I mean, the whole county, there was not a mental health professional in the entire county. And so that's part of it, is that there are a lot of these rural communities that have no mental health professionals. One of the things that I personally think COVID helped us with is the telehealth, but those counties, those communities, still most of them don't have a lot of broadband access either. And so even with the advancements in telehealth, they still may not be able to access mental health services because they don't have broadband access. So there's not a physical person in their county, and their county may not have really good broadband service to even be able to access telehealth services. And so if there's a 0 there, it's because there's nobody that they're able to access. Dr. Amuna, can you speak to any of that?
Yeah, and I will add, so I was part of a health disparity board as it relates to Texas, just health disparity in general. And there was like food deserts that were included in that board that we were on. One thing I will say is that, to co-sign again, yes, there are several rural areas without broadband, without a physical clinician there. And there are also individuals in those areas and outside of those areas that aren't aware that they qualify for care that they qualify for. So for example, there may be something like, again, as clinicians, we know this, but talktherapy.com or crisis therapy, or, the 1-800 crisis number that is free. A lot of individuals are unaware of free resources that are usually telephonic, because there's no one in their area to tell them about the free resource. And so when individuals are like, well, how do you not have access when there are these 1-800 numbers that are no charge? We have knowledge of the 1-800 numbers because someone has told us. So if you're in a rural area where no one has told you that you have access to this thing, then that thing that it's meant to be a good resource goes unused because you don't have knowledge of it. So I co-sign that. Separate from those 13 counties, I think of right here in Killeen area where I am, Fort Hood area, and we have a gazillion of resources for people who are military related because we're a stone's throw away from a military base. But we have individuals who are not military related, who are not employed, who don't have access to health insurance through an employer, who don't know that there are these other resources available to them. So if they were to complete out that survey, they would say there are no mental health resources in this area. So it's on us to know things in our area, things that may or may not be in our area, such as free hotlines.
It looks like we have one hand raised if y'all would like to hear from that
Can we
person.
do maybe one more? We're already past our time.
Yeah.
We can do one more.
I just have, I have 2 people. You want these 2 people? And real quick before we do that, I just want to go over, it looks like we're still getting more questions about the CE, so I want to clarify it one more time. I'll see if we can also get this on the website, but the new rules are found under 681.140. So please go to the new rules. It's 681.140, 6 hours of CEs in ethics. And then it's 3 hours of cultural diversity and competency. And those are currently required. And the only thing that won't take effect until January 1 of 2024 is the 50%. And you'll find that if you go to these rules, 681.140, you'll see where that 50% part of the requirement is. Let's take Cindy Hammond has been raising her hand for most of the time. So if we want to just go ahead and take her, is that okay with you all?
Yes.
Cindy, if you'd like to go ahead and make a comment, and you're on mute.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay. I am concerned about serving the elderly population. I would love to do that, but LPCs are not permitted to be reimbursed by Medicare. How can we rectify that?
So Cindy, first of all, I want to encourage you to connect with TCA because I think they are working on some of the legislative advocating for that. Historically, LPCs have not been reimbursed by Medicare. You are correct. But that is one of the things that we're asking for. And so definitely would say join that conversation to make sure that that happens. Anybody know the status of that? It's not a part of my everyday thing, so I just don't know the status, but I know that there's people working on it out there. And TCA is the resource to look for, to connect with.
I'll just add that the American Counseling Association has the equivalent of a counseling compact for the Medicare. And so if you go to the American Counseling Association's website and then look for their Medicare Part B bill that they're trying to get passed in all 50 states. So there is work, like Janie said, to be done. And there's some people who've already laid the blueprint for us.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. And just to show everyone again, can you guys can see the website real quick, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the main BHEC website. If you go here on the right-hand side, it's workforce study and data right here. So that's where you'll go to access the survey. And then also on the LPC board website, I wanted to make sure everyone was aware you could, this is so under board news. This is where I will post the PowerPoint. And then also under board news, no, sorry, meeting dates. And if you go to the YouTube channel under meeting dates, YouTube channel, this meeting will be posted on there. So you can go back and listen to what I explained for the continuing education if you weren't able to get it all, or, you know, spread the news about it. But again, we put all of our recordings and meetings and webinars here on our Zoom, on our YouTube channel. So I just wanted to share that real quick. But yes, we are going over a little bit on time. So at this point, would you all like to close out?
I just want to say thank you to everyone who took the time to come today and join the conversation. It just warms my heart that you guys also feel that this is important. So
And I would like to say thank you to the three ladies here for participating. Christina, Janie, and Leah, you guys are awesome. Thank you for putting this together. Everybody watching, we would really like to do 3 or 4 of these a year. They're free, they're convenient, and hopefully you find them very helpful. Today's was outstanding. Thank you 3 for all the work that you put in on it.
I'll just say thank you guys again for attending. I think at the highest, it was about 245 something individuals online.
300.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
So thank you for taking the vested interest. You could have gotten a CEU anywhere. You could have been doing anything over this lunch hour. So thank you all for being here.
And just to clarify real quick, I just got a message. You only get 1 hour for the human trafficking course. You get 1 hour. Thank you, everyone. Y'all have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.